And welcome back to SWBA Today. And in today's episode, we are talking about the play-in, and we're going to be talking about the Eastern and the Western Conference play-in as it concludes tonight. And so in the Eastern Conference, we got the Atlanta Hawks versus the Miami Heat. The winner of that game is going to go on to face the Cleveland Cavaliers. And then in the West, we got the Memphis Grizzlies versus the Dallas Mavericks. And the winner of that game is going to go on to play the Oklahoma City Thunder. And so let's go ahead and start with this first game in the Eastern Conference that is set to take place shortly. And so the season series between the two is 2-2. And so you have two teams that have won at home, and then when they get on the road, they have lost. And so when it comes down to statistics, and one of the major stats that kind of jump off the page is just that Miami has been a totally different team on the road versus home against the Atlanta Hawks. In fact, they're averaging 99.5 points per 100 possessions in Atlanta, but in Miami, they're averaging 132.5 points per over 100 possessions in Miami. And so totally different ball game for Miami when they're on the road and then when they're home. And so I think, honestly, you throw that out. I think that that's really not going to be too much of a factor. I think that when you saw the first game that the Atlanta Hawks played in, where they played against the Orlando Magic, a team that I said defensively, they're a very good team, but they have trouble kind of opening it up. I think that Atlanta is set to run into that same type of playing style with the Miami Heat. And this is why I like the Miami Heat in this particular game. I think that Miami, the way that they're playing defensively is something that will travel. I don't care if they're playing in the play-in. I don't care if they're playing in the playoffs. I don't care if they're in the finals. Defense is going to travel with this Miami Heat team. And they've been clicking really offensively lately. And so that is another thing that I really factor in with this game and why I like the Miami Heat. And I'm going back to what was said on SW Today. It was Rick Blaze, and they were talking about LeBron James, and they were talking about how he is a hard exit. Like, it's tough to get him out in a 7-game series. I think the team that is tough to get out is the Miami Heat. It's just like the Miami Heat turn into a different team when it comes down to playoffs, play-in, you name it. This Miami team is a tough team. And you're about to see what Miami culture is all about. And I think that we're going to see that in tonight's game. This is why I like Miami. And so next, when we're looking at just the contrasting styles, Trae Young and this Atlanta Hawks team, they want to get up and down the floor. And I think a lot of times with Trae Young, he's very good at getting teams into pick and roll situations and getting the type of mismatches that he wants, getting either downhill, creating space. He's one of the assist leader actually in the SWBA. And so here's an interesting stat with Atlanta and generally how they like to run their offense. And so as far as ball screens are concerned, here, Trae Young has gone through 3,495 ball screens, which is 774 more than any player this season. And so you can expect Atlanta to run a lot of that action. But here's the issue. When you're coming off of that pick and roll, Miami has the defenders that can switch, whether it's Davion Mitchell, whether it's going to be Andrew Wiggins. I think that Tyler Hero, he's not the best on-ball defender, but he's certainly going to give you some resistance. And they also have some length behind them. And I think that they have some good length that can go out and actually guard the perimeter. You have Bam, you have Khalil Ware. So that is going to make it difficult on Trae Young and this Atlanta Hawks team to get it done. And I think the bottom line here is that for the Atlanta Hawks to get this one done and to win this game and to advance, they're going to have to depend on just the other pieces on this team that have been really rotational pieces. Like Terrence Mann, I've talked about this before. He's been in big ones with the Los Angeles Clippers. It didn't show up against the Orlando Magic. Karis LeVert's going to have to play very well. And then also, too, you're going to have to get some good contributions from Niang. He's going to have to play well. And then also, too, I think Zachary Rizershea is going to have to play, too. And so I do think Dyson Daniels is going to play well. I think he is going to help slow down maybe some of the drives and things that we saw with the Miami Heat and what they were able to do against the Chicago Bulls. But is that going to be enough? And I just think on top of that, I think that the X factor for the Miami Heat, it's going to be Eric Spoelstra. I don't know if there's another coach in the league that makes better adjustments than Eric Spoelstra, especially in a situation now where it's a one-game situation where he's had the time to prepare for the Atlanta Hawks. I think that this is going to be tough. I think that the Miami Heat are going to be the ones to advance today to go on to play the Cleveland Cavaliers. And so next up, I wanted to go ahead and jump into the last game. That's going to be the Dallas Mavericks versus the Memphis Grizzlies. And so, look, this is interesting because this Memphis Grizzlies team, I mean, going back to their last play-in against the Golden State Warriors, they were right there. And one would wonder, okay, if Ja Morant did not go down, could they have done that? And so I don't know. I did talk about the fact that they were 0-8 going out west against these teams in California. And so for whatever reason, they've struggled out there, but they gave Golden State all they can handle. And so in this particular series, 3-1, they lead the season series, and I'm talking about the Memphis Grizzlies. And so one of the stats in that 3-1 that maybe if you're a Memphis Grizzlies fan, you really are, excited about for this game is because this Memphis Grizzlies team is very good against sub 500 teams. Well, guess what? The Dallas Mavericks were 39-43, and so they were below 500. So that would suggest that the Memphis Grizzlies should be fine in this. And in fact, they were very good at home against these sub 500 teams. However, Anthony Davis, in just kind of in my opinion, I think maybe he might be the best player on the floor if he's locked in. His usage rate has gone up, and he certainly had that bounce about him since he's been back. He looked very good against the Sacramento Kings. And so I think that it's going to come down to what you are going to get from Anthony Davis. If Anthony Davis is locked in, this is going to be a long game, I think, for the Memphis Grizzlies because, look, I'm not sure that the Memphis Grizzlies are going to have enough to really match up with that because he could possibly get Jaren Jackson into some trouble defensively because I think that that's one of the things that Jaren Jackson Jr., has struggled with is foul trouble. And so I think that Anthony Davis can kind of exploit that because he can play on the perimeter and inside. So I think that is one of the factors. And then when it comes down to just his ability to kind of pass out of double teams and make decisions, I don't think that Anthony Davis is really lacked in that department. And then when he has the others around him, which have been clicking lately in PJ Washington, they have Max Christie. He's been playing okay in some spurts. Dante Exum gave him some good minutes in this last game against the Kings. And also, too, he has the ability to get it down to his other bigs, whether it's Daniel Gafford or whether it's Lively. And so I think that that is one of the factors that you have to think about in this particular game as well. And so I think that if Memphis is going to win it, it's going to come down to can they control the inside? And then also, too, are they going to be able to get into transition? I think that if Memphis can get into a transition game, they can be dangerous because they led the league in transition points at 32.8 points a game, which means Ja Morant, these guys are going to be running at a fast pace and just trying to not to get into situations where they're taking the basketball out of the basket. And so those misses, can Dallas slow that down? Can Dallas go ahead and make this a game in which they're going to get into the half-court game and kind of bang and beat up the Memphis Grizzlies inside? Because I think that that's probably going to be, the key for the Dallas Mavericks. In fact, Memphis has been outscored by almost 8 points in the paint. Okay, and so that lets me know that if Dallas can get it done there, they can win this. And so anyway, let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. Do you think that, yes, it is going to be the Dallas Mavericks who are going to advance? Do you feel like, no, it is going to be the Memphis Grizzlies? And you feel like at the end of the day, it is going to be Ja Morant, that transition game that's going to take them home. And then next, with the Atlanta Hawks versus the Miami Heat, do you feel like, yes, Miami is a tough out and they have this game? And do you think that, yes, it is going to be Eric Spoelstra? His ability to make adjustments is ultimately what is going to lead the Miami Heat into the playoffs. And so I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. And as we always say, see the game, be the game. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.